pretty.
We're 2.5 miles from the sea, and we're 1,610 feet above sea level. Well, we would like to take this time to extend a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the State Department of Parks and Recreation. We work as a guide team. My name is Phyllis. And it's my pleasure to have my son joining us. Where are you, Ted? There he is. Ted is also a tour guide. He's going to be walking along with us on the tour route. We take turns giving this particular tour. So the first tour out this morning, guess who was calling? Ted was giving the tour, and there was Mom at the back. Ask questions, if you will, though. That to me is the most important. I'll try to give you an idea of the lifestyle and who some of the people were that have been invited. Now, I assume that you heard the bus fleet? Okay, then you do know about the museum rules. And it is imperative that I talk about them as well. A lot of you have cameras, take all the photographs that you wish, but please remember to use only the available light. You'll find the flash is extremely damaging to the art. Over a period of time, it will fade pigments in both tapestries as well as in paintings. And because the state tries to maintain it as the man's home, there aren't any ropes nor there barriers along the way. They're going to be within inches from all of the art pieces, all of those furnishings. So if you will, remember not to touch. That also includes this very forest-dyed marble. When we walk through the gardens, you're going to see a lot of sculptures, statues, statuary made out of this forest marble. If you touch it, the oils and acids in our skin will stain it. Or if you happen to lean up against it, the dye in our clothing will stain it as well. That holds true not only for this European marble called Carrara, but also the domestic marble. Our third stop will be right up there at the outdoor swimming pool. And from where you're standing, you glance up there and you can see the beautiful marble columns supporting the colonnades. Visitors invariably love to have their pictures taken there. Just watch it if you're not leaning up against the marble. Now, chewing gum's been a problem. This is the last rule, by the way. You can see where the gum has been dropped here on the landing as well as on the stairs, scarring up the pavement. We're trying to turn the trash container located to your left. So I got all the museum rules out of the way, but now I have a question for you, for all of you. And that is, do we have any visitors with us from outside of the United States? We're going to find out where they're from. So where are you from?
From England.
You are from England. I am familiar with your country. Yes. Salcombe in Devon.
What? Quite a long way from us.
Yes, that is quite a distance. Mr. Hearst had a castle, which is, by the way, still there, located in Glamorgan, Wales, right on the shore of the Bristol Channel. A 500-year-old castle that he bought in 1925. It's a college now. It's the College of the Atlantic. And Prince Charles is one of the trustees on the board. So the man who built this had 7 estates. This particular one, we've been told, was considered his favorite. He'd arrive in the fall, leave about the 2nd of January, and then reappear again in the spring. So there's a lot to talk about. Oh, do we have anybody else from outside of the United States? We have people here from England. Anybody from Germany? Yes. No. You are from Holland, the man that did gold leafing for Mr. Hearst. He immigrated from Holland. And so all of the gold leafing that you're going to see in the guest house, the middle-sized one, the house right up there, just remember that it was done by Mr. Van Berlin. Well, Californians. Any Californians? There's a few of you out there. Good news for the Californians. This is all yours, every inch of it. Ready to move in? Yeah. Okay, come on, join me, and let's go on up and take a look at the coastline.
Sorry, I'm about to like. Yeah.
So if you were going to stay in this cottage, you would have had quite a view of the sun setting over the ocean. Now, it took approximately 4 years, from 1920 until 1924, to build 3 houses. The main house, or what we do refer to as the castle, was not started until 1922. The building went on until the late 30s. By 1937, Mr. Hearst was in debt, $126 million. So he did end up liquidating some of the art that he owned. He also sold off 6 of his 26 newspapers. Finally, by the end of World War II, he was able to recoup his financial losses. He then returned here, the building resumed, and once again, he was buying up art. He finally left this estate then in 1947. By then, the man was 84 years old, and he had suffered a series of heart attacks. So upon the advice of his cardiac specialist, he moved to Beverly Hills and was there until his death in 1951. Now, 7 years after he died is when the family then decided to have all that you are looking at today get deeded to the state. So everything on this hill, including every bit of art, belongs to the government. This, however, was not designated as a historic home until 1976. And I remember that year forever because that was the year I started working up here. And if you're not aware, it is the second largest home in North America. The largest would be the Biltmore, the Vanderbilt estate, located in Asheville, North Carolina. Are you familiar with it?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
My daughter used to be a guide there.
Very different than this, designed to look like a French chateau. Here you're going to find that the houses were built to look like villas in the southern part of Europe. The main house, and as we approach it, or what we call the castle, you'll see at that time that it really looks more like a church, more like a cathedral. This estate was designed, probably the best way to describe it, was designed to look like a Spanish hill town. So if we go along with that idea, instead of looking out on the Pacific, you'd be looking out on the Mediterranean. Now the architect who designed this was a lady with many hats, and that was Julia Morgan. She was the first licensed woman architect in the state of California. The architect, she was the engineer, and the interior designer. Why was Miss Morgan chosen? She was picked because she had an international reputation for designing buildings that could withstand earthquakes. We are about 40 miles from the big San Andreas fault line, so the buildings up here, you'll find they're built out of concrete, reinforced with steel, not only earthquake but fire resistant. You take a look at all of this concrete. We have cubic yards of concrete all over this estate. Very shortly, when we walk on over to the outdoor swimming pool, you might keep this in mind as well, that if you could actually walk under part of that Neptune pool, in that it is supported by concrete columns. But more about Morgan later. You are going to see a film narrated by Ken Murray when I take you into the theater, and at that time you'll get a good clip of the architect. But as to why Mr. Hearst built in such an isolated, remote area, as a child he camped up here, and I believe you heard that on the bus tape. His father, George Hearst, started the Hearst fortune. He was successful as a mining engineer. He owned copper, gold, and silver mines. And he started to buy the land way back in 1865 when William was only 2 years old. After the property was purchased, the family used to come up here and camp. They camped in tent houses, erected in the same locale as the guest cottages are today. The indoor one that you'll see later, the decorative, the drinking fountains comes all from the same source as it did when Hearst was here. Back in the mountains, 3 natural artesian springs, 1,000 feet higher than where we are. So the water also provided the electricity that he needed, had his own hydroelectric plant. This estate, totally electric. So quite advanced for his time. Now, have you any questions up to now? Anything at all that you'd like to know? Of the 5 sons that he had, one of them is still living. Pat's father, Randolph, who is 84 years old. So Patty is one of 15 grandchildren. Now, when the Hearsts come, I mentioned that they do stay in the Victorian home below. However, they do join us on occasion. We're always alerted whenever we're going to have any of the Hearsts visiting. They'll generally follow up behind a bus. They'll drive up, and of course they don't pay. And then they join us on tour. They did stay up here, even though this was turned over to the government in 1958. They occupied the large guest house until 1976. So if you can just imagine, here we were conducting tours, and the Hearsts were living in the large house. And the reason that they were there is because when they decided to turn this over to the government in 1958 as a healthy tax write-off, they had asked that they could allow to continue to vacation up here, to use a large house. And they'd still be here today, except that in 76, mid-morning of Lincoln's birthday, this house that we're about to walk through was bombed. The bombing occurred about the time that Pat went on trial, and I'm sure many of you recall reading about it. To this day, we don't know who had been responsible. It was either the SLA or the New World Liberation Front. Nor do we know how they got in. They could have been on tour the night before, or they could have crept through during the night, but nevertheless, they bombed the guest cottage, probably thinking that the Hearsts were living in it, when in reality, they were living right next door. Well, right after that happened, the state felt that for the safety of the family, it would be wise if they no longer lived here. So that's when they vacated the estate and they moved to the house down below. Now, any questions? You know the year that building started, you know who the architect was, and you get the connection between William Randolph Hearst and Patty. Well, join me then. Let's walk on over to the outdoor pools. Now, photographers, might I suggest that you take your pictures as we go along. By the end of the tour, we'll end up on the other side of the hill.
Oh, dang. It's doing it still.
Stop it. Did you stop it?
No?
Now, this pool would have been heated back in this position because when you go in this one, it's heated oftentimes in the night. Or at least it would arrive in the pool. Like Indian summer, the sunsets are incredible at that time. And then when we got the 2nd of January, spring. So the pool was heated by diesel fuel, oil boilers. The temperature at the mission of high 70s. Today it's heated with
Does she want to go to talking?
the depth of it is 3.5 feet or 1 meter on the left, and it goes to almost 10 feet to the far right. Or into the measuring system close to the computer. 6 feet of water here in the outlet. A third of a million gallons of water. And remember, this is all spring water here at the measuring pool. Now, the focal point of the pool would be the temple across the way, which is Greco-Roman in design. The backdrop was made right here on the site. But if you take a look, people, at those granite columns that do support the entablature, you are going to find that they do not match. Those 6 columns, those date back 1700 to over 2,000 years of age. And those have come from different buildings in Rome. Much younger than that would be the figures up there in the temple tenement. In the triangular section, those deities up there date back to the 16th century. Neptune is standing right up there in the center, flanked by Mary for attendants. And then right across, back there in the alcove, you recognize the legendary figure Venus. See, most of the statuary up here on the estate has a mythological theme. There is Venus, the goddess of beauty and love, born out of the foam of the sea. You can see her coming in seaweed out of her hair, and she's being carried out of clamshell off to the island of Cyprus. Now remember that beautiful white marble Carrara, that's the same type of marble used centuries ago by Michelangelo when he sculpted the beautiful Pieta when he did the Electron Moses. These statues, all of them, all around the pool edge, including Venus, all done by one artisan by the name of Charles Castle. You can see his name right down here on the base of the statue. These pieces were executed in the 1920s. They were finally completed in 1930. This figure close to where we are standing, the companion piece across, and the two directly at the far, and back in the Greco-Roman temple, Lita has a hairstyle of 1930. So it is a true actually, and these pieces were finally completed. And you'll find if you walk through the gardens that a lot of the female figures depicted in the statues, in the statuary, will have a hairstyle of that particular time. Now, one of the best places to get a shot of this pool would be to look at the bathhouse. That building which you see up there has 17 stories.
It's still playing and it still goes up. Do you want me to take a picture of that?
What's it doing?
It phases in and out. Do you want me to take a picture of that?
I did.
All right, now. Okay. Destiny's up on top, my friend.
Dozen on the gardening staff. There are 9 full-time groundskeepers and 3 part-time. Now, people, as you look toward the mountains of Santa Lucia, you get a fairly good idea of what the estate looked like before any building began. All of the topsoil had to be brought in before the gardens could be planted. These are formal style gardens to blend in with the type of architecture up here. Now, this is a house we'll go through, and the middle-sized guest house, by the way, is more of a Moorish Islamic design than the other two. This one in size is 6,800 square feet. It has 18 rooms on 3 levels. The balcony screen up there has just been recently restored. Directly behind that screen up there is a small apartment. There's a bedroom and a bath up there with furniture that is miniature in size. So when families were invited, this would have been the house that they would have occupied, and the youngsters could have stayed up on that top floor. So as we encircle the middle floor, you're going to see spiral staircases off the hallways. Just remember, they lead up to the top level. There's also a lower floor. There are 2 more bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a sitting room. The houses do not have any kitchens. There aren't any cooking or eating facilities. All the meals had to be taken in the main house. No room service, no breakfast in bed. I think the idea behind that is that when you're invited here, he wanted his guests to socialize. He didn't want people arriving here and isolating themselves. So we're going to walk through that house. Oh, by the way, this one is called House of the Mountains. It's about 3,000 square feet, and there are 10 rooms. We do show that particular house on tour 3. So at the present, we do have 3 tours going, and each tour entails a different part of the estate. But when you go through this house, do take note of the ceilings. They are works of art. They're made out of plaster of Paris. They were made up in Oakland, the northern part of the state, brought down, installed, and gold leafed by a man from Holland. The bath quarters have been changed. When you walk through, you're going to see that the bath quarters are back to back. When this house was first built in the early 20s, there was a large bathroom on each side, which would have meant that the occupants in the bedrooms would have to have shared the large bath. Mr. Hearst said to the architect, why don't we have the bath quarters changed, altered, have them scaled down in size? So you'll see when you walk through, they are 3/4 in size. Now, the only alteration done by the state was that the doors were then removed from the bathrooms, and the state also cut through the walls between the bathrooms just to facilitate a tour route. So we'll walk on through and circle the middle floor, and then after we do so, I'll meet you out in the courtyard and answer any questions that you might have. But is there anything at this time before we walk through? Okay, middle of the afternoon, beach umbrellas, deck chairs, tables, very similar to what you see set up here on the roof of the bathhouse. By the way, directly below us there are 17 changing rooms. Each stall, or each one, has a stall shower, hot and cold running water, vanity for cosmetics, toiletries provided. Mr. Hearst even provided swimsuits for the guest. So had you arrived not expecting to find 2 swimming pools on his ranch, and you forgot your suit, you had suits in all sizes, styles, and colors to pick from.
Wow.
Tennis togs, riding habits, anything that you might need as a guest would have been provided. So, should we go through the house? Let's do it, and then I'll meet you out in the courtyard.
Ma'am? All built by 2020?
We're not together.
I have my mother.
Dad, get a picture of that,
Oh yeah.
Of what?
of the tower.
Some ugly tower, Johnna. It's the same one that's on your miniature cards.
These are the guest house. These are California tiles, as well as the ones that are out here in the courtyard. And if you look behind you in the stairs and the risers, more California tiles. They were fired in tile factories in San Jose and San Leandro, but they're all original from the 20s. Yeah, come on in. Let's go in the courtyard. I'll be curious as to what you think of this house. There's the closet there. And then remember now, you see the little stairs, which goes right by before you enter the sitting room. Stairs that lead up to children's quarters. Yeah, if you were tall, you'd have a little bit of a problem with that bed. Look how short it is. These beds are standard size for the 1920s. if you were tall, just how you'd handle a bed of that size. Probably have to sleep diagonally. Oh, there's a stairway.
Wow. You don't need to get every little detail down. That thing's tiny. That's great, Johnna, stop.
No, not the mirror. Where's the shower? Is there a shower? Oh. Shower. There's a shower. Whoa, heater. Ooh. There's the pool. View of the pool, view of the ocean. Keep going, Johnna. You're slowing the tour down. Stairs. Can't go straight.
Well, I have some people already that said they think they have kept some sneak in here without any problem. You'll sign up, you're ready. Well, actually, I tell you, we have enough bedrooms here on the estate to accommodate 50 guests. Because the three houses combined have a total of 20 bedrooms. And then the main house has 26 bedrooms, of which 4 of them have twin beds. So 30 people could sleep in the castle and then 20 in the cottages.
I have to look at it myself, you know. It's not the same in the camera.
Explain the ceilings again. Nobody seems to know who the sculptor for that was. A lot of religious art up here, and it becomes very prevalent once we get into the main house, just like this
Another
main
spiral staircase.
unsigned. A lot of church art was unsigned. And the reason that they didn't sign church art, it was thought of really as a sign of blasphemy or sacrilegious. Artists were to paint out a glory for God more so than their own recognition. They're plaster of Paris. They were made up in the molding shops in the northern part of the state in Oakland. Brought down, installed, and molded by men from Holland. Made on a stud, on scaffolding, and
Oh my goodness. Oh, it's so cluttered.
now, the other two houses, the ceilings are also made out of the same material and then molded.
Yay, it didn't
Whatever
flash.
slide mold anywhere on this hilltop, you can assume it is. Some of the silver too, you'll find when you walk through the bedrooms. The lighting fixtures, the ceiling fixtures. Some of the lamps, they are sensor lamps from Catholic churches. And a lot of the silver here, like the lamps in this house, they are actually more pure than sterling and only polished once a year. The reason the silver requires very little care is because the house is totally electric. No gas heat, no smoking, cooking, or touching anywhere near where the tours are conducted.
Good questions. The screens, they look, what are the screens, the window screens, they look gold.
The window screens,
Well,
what do you,
so,
just,
the door as we enter?
yeah, that is. The gold paint, are you talking about?
No, the screen itself,
Oh.
the mesh.
I don't know, the mesh? Yeah, I think, oh, this, yeah, the same thing,
I see what you mean.
yeah.
Where's the
Is that a
kitchen?
baptismal,
Christine fount, baptismal fount, yeah. Come on out here into the courtyard.
Would two separate families stay here then?
They got along, yeah.
Otherwise, it's just one family on
Well, you've got the bedroom, the bath. Yeah, you've got 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms here. If there was, well, maybe I should clarify something. There wasn't a pecking order as such. We can say that the most important guests would have stayed in one place over another. We do know that when there were small groups invited, like sometimes only half a dozen people here during the week, you would have found that the guests would have stayed in the guest houses. During the holidays, when 50 people were invited, then these houses were filled along with the main house. Business associates always stayed in the castle. There are some rooms that are called cloister bedrooms used by businessmen.
Where did Marion Davis stay?
Oh, I was waiting for that. I knew there was somebody who missed it.
Marion Davis is missing.
Yes, you know, yesterday, I should tell you this story. No, was it yesterday? Yes, it was yesterday. I was doing a tour one, and everybody was getting off the bus, and off the bus steps 2 little nuns. And I looked at them and I thought, gee, it reminded me of the nuns that I had years ago when I was teaching. Because the first teaching position I got in Phoenix was in a Catholic school until finally I started working in a public school. And it was the order, I asked the little nun, I said, what order of nuns do you represent? And I said, would it be the Sisters of Charity? And she said, well, yes. She was 87 years old, she was part of the college. And her little friend, sister, and I don't know what it was, we made this all the years of going to Catholic schools and teaching in Catholic school. I've been talking about Maryland. I've been here almost 23 years. I have never given a tour in which I did not mention Maryland. They stood in front of me throughout the entire tour, and there were so many times I wanted to say to the whole group, well, Mr. Hurst did have a lot. She was his companion, his mistress, his paramour. I heard so I think I set a record yesterday. Now, questions about this house. So somebody asked about the paintings in the sitting room, the little boy and the little girl. Those were the children from the court of King Philip III of Spain. And those paintings were done by Bartolome Gonzalez in the 17th century. Now soon we're going to have this fountain activated. I don't know if you noticed, but the lion seems to be a specialty for this house. You saw the lions out on the fire mantle in the sitting room, dating back to the days of Alexander the Great. And then we have this Verona limestone. If you ever go to Italy, to the city of Verona, you'll find that a lot of the buildings, and almost all of the sidewalks in the city are made out of this very same type of material. But here you have the mama lion with the cubs, there's the papa lion. Now this is Byzantine, and then there's a baptismal font directly behind you. And that piece that is below that Persian picture tile, we're not quite sure as to what it is. A lot of us think that maybe that could be a sarcophagus, a burial vault, or a chemical crematorium. We do have 9 of them here on the estate. You know why I collected them? Primarily for art. Some of the burial vaults up here were actually used as elaborate flower planters. Well, come on along the Esplanade.
Where did they get the furniture? Did that come from her?
Barker Brothers in Los Angeles and Sloan's in Beverly Hills. All original.
I've got plans here.
Pieces up here, 3 graces. Brilliance, joy, and bloom. This is a copy. The original is in the Hermitage Museum in Russia. You know, of all of the sculpture up here, this was his favorite. And here's the burial vault. Come on in a little closer and you can see it. It's really a beautiful piece. It's a sarcophagus. Now, the way that they were used, the ones that are antique here on the estate, they're Greek and Roman. A deceased person would have been buried in one of these, anywhere from 40 to 60 days. And then after that time, the remains were then scraped out and put into a funerary urn. The lime and the stone would have decomposed the body. The ones that are made out of marble quicklime would have been sprinkled over the deceased, the lid clamped down, sealed with pitch, and then after 60 days, what was in there was taken out. Sarcophagus.
Is that an original?
Yeah, this is one of the antique ones. Yeah, the ones that are antique here.
If you want to get rid of something,
Decomposed.
put it in line, and get a vault and put it in.
years in age, and she is from the northern part of Spain, from Zamora. About a foot down from where Mary is standing, there is a light. And when the light was on, that was to let the guests know that Hearst was here. When you go to England, you go to the Windsor Castle, and what you see when the flag is waving, what does that tell you? Him, right. Now, we're going to slip into a side door, but before we do, take a look at that beautiful wood gable up there. That teak had come from Thailand, and that outlines the Hearst apartment. That was where Mr. Hearst moved in 1927. Now, that brings to mind the name Marion Davies. William Randolph Hearst married in 1903. It was on the eve of his 40th birthday when he married Patty Hearst's grandmother, Millicent Veronica Wilson. She was a native New Yorker. She was a top dancer on the Broadway stage. She bore him 5 sons. They separated, never divorced, but separated after 24 years of marriage. So from 1927 on, Mrs. Hearst and the children lived in New York. By then, Hearst had met and became very much involved with Miss Davies. He met her in 1916. At the time that they met, Marion was part of the Big Bell College. She was a showgirl. Later on, Miss Davies did become a silent screen actress and had starred in 50 films that Hearst had produced. So yes, she did play a very important part here in the story of St. Simeon, more so than his wife. Well, we'll slip into this side door.
Okay.
Bill. It's the side door.
So how do you think the guests got here? Say you received an invitation to come to Mr. Hearst's ranch here at San Simeon. How would you get up here?
Motor.
Train, plane, car. Where could be accommodated. More chairs brought in, and 50 guests could sit at these tables. Mr. Hearst always sat at the center of the table. Marion Davies sat directly across, and to the right where he sat would have been the architect, Miss Morgan. She always had the chair of honor to his right. You're looking at a king's ransom in silver, also an international silver collection. Candlesticks in front of you from Mexico. The ones behind you match the ones that are over here. That we've got a couple of them out right now. I guess one of them is out. It's being polished in the kitchen. But of the 8 that I just pointed out to you, 7 of them originated in Belgium, and 1 came from the Netherlands. The covered dishes in here are from England and from Ireland. There actually was a lot more silver than what you see. We had a man on tour several years back that had worked as a butler for Mr. Hearst in the 1930s. Well, if you turn in later years with his family, he happened to be on my tour. And I asked Mr. Harris as we walked into the room, I said, does this room look pretty much the way it looked when you worked here, when you were in Mr. Hearst's service? And he said, oh, there was a lot more silver than what you've got on the table. So much of it that many of the pieces had to be piled up under the tables in the dining room. So naturally, I was curious as to what happened.
Why'd she bring up the mace? Why'd she bring up the mace?
The dishes.
Get the dishes?
I meant down in the room.
When the gate was closed, that would have been to safeguard the sacred vessels. In this particular instance, it's just to separate the dining room from the small sitting room. Another reason, too, is that the floor plan here, well, these community rooms would be very much like the floor plan.
What are, oh. Telephone.
I think around a lot in the last 3 decades. That's two. For inside were pictures which no one had ever seen before. Home movies, taken years ago within the confines of the largest, costliest, and most imposing private estate on the North American continent, San Simeon, the fabled citadel of William Randolph Hearst. Today, San Simeon is a state monument. But during its heyday, which spanned the roaring 20s and the fabulous 30s, it was the gathering place of the Hollywood immortals. With guests like Marie Dressler, seen here clowning with the host, William Randolph Hearst. That outfit she's wearing looks like a flea-bitten version of Touch of Mink. That pretty blonde over there with the short bobbed hair is Marion Davies. Although she typified glamour on the screen, at San Simeon she joined in the fun. Marion Davies was one of the best-liked members of the motion picture colony. Beloved by everyone who knew her, she endowed many charities still in existence. That's Charlie Chaplin kidding around. The man coming out of the door at that moment was the mayor of New York City, Jimmy Walker. If these pictures seem to reflect a certain frivolity, you must remember they were taken at that wonderful carefree period in our history. The First World War had ended, and the second one was nowhere in sight. That youth on the right is Adolph Monju. Yes, notables from every walk of life visited San Simeon. That's Paul Block, the newspaper publisher, chatting with the mayor. The fellow kneeling down in front of this group is George K. Ott, the comedian. And the attractive girl on the left in the print dress is Hedda Hopper. Standing next to Hedda is the founder of America's largest bank, APG&M. John Gilbert and his wife, Virginia Bruce. Claire Windsor and Dolores Del Rio. They're down at the tennis court, watching Chaplin hit a few to Bill Chilton. That teenager on the right is Carol Lombard. Nothing pleased the host more than when everybody got outdoors in the afternoon to take part in some group activity. He was proud of San Simeon and eager for his guests to enjoy it to the full. Many people have the sense of acquisitive possessiveness, but William Randolph Hearst was the only man ever able to indulge it to the hilt. But it was a strange paradox that this fighting giant of journalism with all his vast collection of material wealth should also have a tender passion for the treasures of nature, flowers, trees, and animals. Yes, Mr. Hearst was a happy man at San Simeon. Whether he was conducting business with his secretary or welcoming a famous guest like Lindy. In town, he was very reticent about having his picture taken. But up here, he seemed to have no objection. He'd even kid about it. Part of the daily routine was to move the guests to the adjoining zoo to witness the feeding of the animals. The largest private collection in the world, was established on 2,000 San Simeon acres, protected from the guests by an 8-foot-high wire fence, 10 miles long. Visitors were made aware of Mr. Hearst's tenderness toward animals when they drove up the mountainside, as they were confronted by large signs admonishing them to always drive slow. As Hedda Hopper once said, a visit to the Hearst Ranch was a ticket to Never Never Land. Never has there been such a place, and never will we see its like again. As an animal collector, Mr. Hearst started modestly with a herd of rare, pure white fallow deer imported from Asia. Then, patriotically, he added Montana black buffalo, but had to go far afield again to gather exotic animals from all over the world. And when these animals stopped in the middle of the road, you stopped. Yes, there was hardly anything in the Bronx Zoo or any other great American collection that could not have been found at San Simeon at its peak. Before I left that day, I had to take one more shot at that main entrance. Everything seemed so much the same that I almost expected our host to come out of the door. As the time came to leave, and we started down from the Enchanted Hill, a familiar quotation came to my mind. I think it was Kipling who said, "The tumult and the shouting die, the captains and the kings depart." It seems so true here at San Simeon. Long after its builder's vast newspaper chain and political influences are forgotten, he will be remembered as America's greatest art collector and the creator of San Simeon.
Come on, join me. Last stop, indoor pool. This house right by the tennis courts on our way. All people watch their heads here. They have a little fun.
This is the indoor pool. Oh, this is tennis court.
Does this look indoor?
That's what I was asking.
From where you're standing on the Thank you. Yeah.
It is extremely deceiving. Huh? What'd you say? There's a bag in the car. And then that's the bag in the car. Wouldn't there? I don't know how you got up there.
Oh, restoration.
There it is. Whoa, the Neptune pool's all the way over there. That is so pretty. It looks like a post.